Hello everyone. Today in this video I am going to cover the ethics paper GS paper 4 2021. This paper was held I think 8 to 9 months back, the first month of this year by UPSC. Generally the paper is held in the month of October, but because of the corona time problems the paper was postponed. This video was to be made just after days that UPSC held this exam, but because of some of the factors I could not make it. But better late than never. But also, if I am making it just now, when 1.5 months or less than that time left for the next year mains, which is to be held from 16th September 2022, this year itself. So I will be becoming a bridge for the important, or you can say most important questions that I feel that UPSC can ask in this year. So it can be covered in the next video, but this year effort 3 questions. I will like to have the overview, overall temperament that you need to develop for this year ethics paper. So if I talk about 2021 paper, so I can say that the paper was more or less average, but ethics paper, subjective paper, very simple when you look at it, but very hard when you need to articulate the simple questions that UPSC has framed or put. So the 7 heads are there of the syllabus, wherein we talk about the foundational values, the human values, foundational values of civil services, then attitude, aptitude, emotional intelligence, right? These are the major heads. And if we talk about the 2021 paper, the questions that have been asked from the major heads are there. The question paper was balanced. No question was there which was out of the box kind of thing, but yes, say for example, the digital technology and impact of it on the decision making. Yes, you can say it had the science and tech underpinnings under it. You can also talk about the refugee question that was asked in 2021. It is having IR, means international relation dimensions. There were questions, you can say from the civil engineering perspective in the case study, when you are a civil engineer and some of the cracks developed in a bridge, what will you be doing? And ethical dilemmas are there and you have to respond to those ethical dilemmas. All in all, they have talked about the traits, they have talked about the values. This is also a question in future, that what is the difference between trait and values. In the first question and second question, they have talked about traits and values. In 2021 paper, in different questions, they have used the expression civil servant. They have used public servant. They have also used public officials. These terms are one and the same, or there is some difference. This is also a question in future. And when I talk about the sources, or you can say a closed book that UPSC uses to frame the question, means on behalf of UPSC, some of the people are framing the question, what are those sources? I want to say that when more than not 10 years, but around 9 to 10 years gone by, the ethics paper is coming. One source is that all the questions that UPSC has asked so far, including the case studies, becomes one of the source that UPSC has said so, it means it is one of the source. Then second source is, say for example, for bureaucracy, if they are asking the foundational values, why not some of the forms, the ethics committee and all, we can use at the source, because we have the authentic information, not the private sector or some other sector has framed it, but the government, UPSC itself is framing as part of some of the commission committee report, and it is published in newspaper. So I will be covering the sources also for 1 or 2 questions, so that you have idea that what all the sources that I can think that you can also work upon in future. Okay. So to begin with, I have the first question here in front of you. The first question is saying that identify 5 ethical traits on which one can plot the performance of a civil servant and justify their inclusion in the matrix. Why this question has been asked, what is the motivation in the examiner's mind or the framer's mind, is first of all I would like to tell Mission Karmayogi. They have also talked about the metrics in it, say for example competence metrics. And the second source, that the performance of a civil servant is to be plotted. When you become a civil servant or an IAS, there is something called as annual confidential report or the assessment, which is used for your promotion, because numbers are there in terms of category that you are excellent or you are average. I think you would like to see that ACR form, which will be filled by your senior. If I need to go back. So this is the, you can say ACR form that I have, brought from some of the authentic source. So you can see that super time scale and junior administrative grade, senior time scale and junior time scale. This is the form's first, you can say first page. If I scroll it down, I will go to some of the entries after your information, the date of birth, year or allotment. Because it is very, very important at this learning phase of your life that you must know about the authentic sources. So if I talk about the foundational, you can say traits that a civil servant must have and his or her, performance can be plotted, then we can use this as a source that so say for example, accomplishment of planned work, quality of output means everyone is doing their work or his or her work, but what is the quality of that work? The time taken, the energy put, the resources, means more resource has been used or less resource has been used, we have to see. Then they have talked about assessment of personal attributes, attribute and traits. These things are somewhat close to each other. If I talk about trait versus value, trait is something which is connected to your fixed habits, sometimes your DNA factor, right? Very, very hard to be changed. Traits, right? There are psychological theories like trait theory, A and B personalities are there that is being analyzed there. But when we talk about values, values are of course latent, and attitude tests are there which are used to check the values. These values can be developed. Honesty is value, but honesty is not a trait, right? Behavioral habits, like you are having a particular pattern of saying something, is your trait, right? Traits can be termed as biological connotation, loaded word, but when we talk about value, value is psychologically loaded word, which can be learned and unlearned. We can, you can say, learn new values, we can teach new values. So if attributes is talked about, then attitude to work, sense of responsibility, overall bearing and personality, emotional stability, communication skills, these all things are there printed in annual confidential report. And every officer report is prepared by the senior. You will also be preparing the report for your junior. Okay. So the functional competency and all, this form you will be able to find in the description box of the YouTube video, wherein the link will be there. You can use it to download it. The term integrity is there, so you can see it in detail. What is the basic idea about it, about this thing here, is that the UPSC, we have to think in terms of the kind of closed book format sometimes, that what all sources we have to see. Another source is that, was this question there in the previous year paper also? Yes, in 2013, if we talk about 2013, UPSC has asked to explain some of the terms, say for example, integrity. So it is a repeat of that question, perseverance, then commitment, attitude, then courage of conviction. Whatever you do, you need to have courage to say that yes, I have done that, or you need to assert yourself, right? UPSC has already asked such terms, and you have to have the terms used here as part of the trade too. Now, if we talk about other sources, the other motivation behind the UPSC, the Nolan Committee, right? Nolan Committee is there, which is talking about the ethical traits and values. You have to put the term here. You have to put the term that annual confidential report for the bureaucrats are using some of the values and traits against which the performance of a particular civil servant is plotted. UPSC is very well convinced that candidate is thinking in terms of kind of relevant life that one will be having in future. Okay. Now, one of the things that you will be able to have here, that they have used the term that civil servant, right? If we go to another question, we will be finding that another question is missing here, 1B. I would like to write it here, that the 10 essential values of a public servant. First question was having A and B, two questions in it. So in another question, they have asked the 10 essential values of a public servant. So public servant and civil servant. Do we have difference here? And public official also. I would like to talk about, because this can be a question this year, that what is the difference between public servant and civil servant. See, public servant is a bigger term. Civil servant is comparatively smaller term. You are into a civil service as far as your preparation is concerned. But when we talk about public servant, so other people of the other class, say for example class 2, the group B services, group C, the scientist, the defense officers, are they not public servant? Yes, they are. Public simply here means government, the government service. Okay. But when we talk about civil services, so this is CSE exam, not PSE exam. Okay. But Union Public Service Commission, being the main but the selecting agency for the civil service, also conducting NDA, CDS, CAPF exam, right? Engineering service exam too. So public service exam and civil service exam, both are different. Different in the sense that public service is superset of this subset. When we talk about public official, so public official, sometimes we relate it to the officers class. Officers class means white collar people who are having more responsibilities in comparison. But when we are including public officials, it will also be including all the people who are into group A, group B, group C, leaving the group 4 aside, because they are having the responsibility of their work. They are not having their junior or assistant, but the other classes are having assistance from their junior, you can say, who are with the with proposition, the other people who need to look after them. So group A, group B, group C. So if the technical difference we need to talk about, it is this. But when we are analyzing it, especially in the ethics paper, which is subjective in nature, we need not to be in that watertight compartment that we have to draw the line like a scientist or an engineer. No, no, no. It is not that. We have to articulate in a very beautiful line that there is a transition and the person who is reading our language is able to understand what we want to say, right? Now, if we talk about another question, the question number 2A here, that impact of digital technology as a reliable source of input for rational decision making is a debatable issue. Critically evaluate with suitable example. Here, this question is having science and tech connotation, current affairs also, but you need not to have that direction, because you have to think that it is ethics paper. So you have to fill in the colors in your answer that it looked like ethics paper. So when you were studying about ethics, you also talked about behavior, which include decision making. And when we talk about decision making, Herbert A. Simon immediately comes to our mind. Herbert A. Simon was also given Nobel Prize, right, for the terms like bounded rationality, right, for the term like satisficing, right. He was able to distinguish between programmed and non-programmed decisions. He was also very clear about the phases of decision making called as IDC, intelligence, design and choice activity. If I need to tell you in simple term about this question, that decision making बहुत सिंपल है और बहुत हार्ड भी है, बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स हो सकते हैं. से फॉर एग्जांपल लाइफ में सबको पैसे कमाने होते हैं और आपने ये सोचा कि मैं एक ब्यूरोक्रेट बन के सैलरी आएगी मेरे पास तो मैं पैसे कमाऊं जिससे मैं अपनी बेसिक नीड्स का, अपनी फैमिली का लुक आफ्टर कर पाऊंगा और अपनी लाइफ को जी पाऊंगा. सर्विस तो मैं करूंगा ही. सारे लोग अपने अपने तरीके से काम कर रहे हैं. कोई प्रॉपर्टी डीलर है, कोई इंजीनियर है, सबको अपना अपना काम है, अपने इंटरेस्ट का, अपने टेस्ट का, राइट. तो कहने का मतलब यह है कि डिसीजन मेकिंग इज इन्वॉल्विंग टेक्निकली सम ऑफ द स्टेजेस, बट द क्वेश्चन इज अबाउट दैट डू वी हैव द सब्जेक्टिव एलिमेंट इन इट और द ऑब्जेक्टिव एलिमेंट इन इट. Objective element means the statement of reality which cannot be changed. So value fact dichotomy is being talked about. Say for example, as a public officer, we have to deal with crores of rupees, which is public money. When we see money and there are the opportunities that we can have some of the adjustment in between, which is called as corruption, under table money, values are coming in, right? दिल बोल रहा है कि ले लो, राइट. दिमाग कहता है नहीं, अच्छी अच्छी बातें रखनी चाहिए, हमने ईमानदारी मतलब ऑनेस्टी को पढ़ा है और उसी को हमने एजर्ट करना है, उसी को हमने एग्जीक्यूट करना है. सो द सब्जेक्टिविटी लोडेड इन डिसीजन मेकिंग इज टू बी curtailed, is to be minimized, and that is why we have brought what is called as artificial intelligence, which is nothing but Digital technology. Who is willing to give the money in the toll tax? Right? कोई नहीं पैसे देना चाहता, वहां पे कहीं ना कहीं कुछ पास दिखा के या कैसे भी करके निकलना चाहते हैं. टैक्स एवेजन इज ऑल्सो अनदर थिंग. सो डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी यहाँ पे क्या कर रही है, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को इंक्लूड करके आज की डेट में फास्टैग सिस्टम को यूज करते हैं. और कल या परसों की ही न्यूज है, फास्टैग को हम सैटेलाइट से कनेक्ट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. राइट? सो डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर रेशनल डिसीजन मेकिंग. रेशनैलिटी इज नथिंग बट कनेक्टेड टू ऑब्जेक्टिविटी, and more objectivity means lesser and lesser subjectivity, and lesser subjectivity means value is also a subjective term. So the role of emotions as far as the bureaucratic life is concerned, public life is concerned, is to be minimized. That is why the electronic record keeping of the criminal in the criminal justice system. Okay, so that is very very important. When we talk about the record of lands, the computerization of it, the automation of the office, this is nothing but as part of rational decision making, so that there is no fixing in between. In public distribution system, we are also talking about rational decision making because of the leakages in between. The money is not reaching to the desired end. This is the main issue, and that is why this question is there. Digital technology, rational decision making is just the mean, but the main end is putting honesty in between, bringing honesty in the process, not possible through purely depending upon the human behavior. It is just not possible, right? 100% honesty we cannot ensure from the all the human. There will be some exception, but computer is not dishonest, that it doesn't want to do corruption. That is why the digital technology is very very important. We have to mention Herbert A. Simon, programmed and non-programmed decision making, IDC processes, then value fact dichotomy is very important if there is a question regarding the decision making. If you find my notes in the market, these all things I talk in detail when we have the ethics classes. So if I need to talk about another question, question number 2b, this question is saying that besides domain knowledge, a public official need innovativeness and creativity of a high order as well while resolving ethical dilemmas. Discuss with suitable example. So what do we mean by domain knowledge and innovativeness and creativity? Okay, so ethical dilemma is another term here. When I talk about dilemmas, the Arjun and the Krishna's teaching in the war field, युद्ध भूमि के अंदर में जब अर्जुन को डिलेमा हो गया था कि मैं क्या करूं, तो कृष्ण ने आके बस यही कहा था that आपको कर्म करना है. राइट? बहुत सारी चीजें हैं डिलेमास को पूरा करने के लिए, बट यहाँ पर टू बिगिन विद, इफ आई टॉक अबाउट डोमेन नॉलेज, यू आर एन IAS, you are an IPS. The domain is different. Here police service, essentially. Here administration you need to look after. You are into revenue. So revenue is the main work you will be having, directly or indirectly. So domain is different. So when you are a public official, you may be into the Indian Railway management service, which is the new service in the offing. So railway management will be your domain. So if the domain knowledge is talked about, you have been given training, you have read the theory, you have the on-job experience also. But do we need to have fixation? That there has to be routine ways of solving the problem. Will there not be a new way? Innovativeness, and if we talk about creativity, it is very, very important, right? Out of the box idea. If we talk about the Edison, this man was the seventh child, right? And at the age of 12, he was a school dropout because of the instability, mental instability. He was not able to focus, and he is one of that person who can be termed as one of the men who has most of the patent on his name, more than 1,000, right? So if we talk about the innovativeness and creativity and the ethical dilemmas in particular, then many of the situation you may recall. Say for example, if you are an IAS and you have to make arrangement for a road building wherein the environmental hazards are there, the trees are to be cut so that road can be built, the displacement of people is also there. So very big project it is, but as part of your district, your area, you have to think innovatively so that the environmental hazard is least, the displacement of people is least, the arrangement is there, and the road construction so that nation building is also there in picture. If we talk about the displacement of people, of course some of the people will be having problem, but utilitarianism is all about maximum people's happiness. So some of the people will be disturbed, but it is justified. So ethical dilemma, you have to use utilitarianism in it. You may not be very much ideal that rule utilitarianism you need to follow. You have to follow the branch called as act utilitarianism, a theory called by Jeremy Bentham. Act this theory was given by Bentham. मतलब बहुत सारे लोगों का यदि कुछ फायदा है और उसमें दो लोगों का कुछ नुकसान है, दो लोगों की कुर्बानी देनी होती है कभी मजबूरी में, तो वो जस्टिफाइड है। हम यहाँ शांति से सोते हैं क्योंकि बॉर्डर पे वहाँ कोई खड़ा हुआ है जो अपनी जान देने के लिए तैयार है। जान जाएगी ऐसा किसी ने नहीं सोचा है, लेकिन जा सकती है और जाती है, ये पार्ट ऑफ जॉब है। और वो मेरे हिसाब से एक ऐसी चीज़ होती है जो काफ़ी आगे तक याद की जाती है, और हर कोई चाहता है कि हम लोगों का आखिरी भी दिन हो तो वो ऐसा हो कि लोग याद करें जाने के बाद भी। ओके, सो दिस इज व्हाट वी नीड टू टॉक अबाउट। इसमें मेरे को एक लाइन याद आ गई कि लोग कहते हैं कि जिंदगी को तो लोग बेवजह बदनाम करते हैं, उल्टा कह गया मैं, मौत को तो लोग बेवजह बदनाम करते हैं, तकलीफ तो जिंदगी देती है। सो दैट्स हाउ इट इज। नाउ द सुटेबल एग्जांपल मे बी टैक्स एवेजन, GST norms, demonetization. This is one of the example of road. As a public official you will be having many ethical dilemmas कि क्या करें, तो वहाँ पर आपको लोकल रिसोर्सेज बनाने होंगे। इन्वायरमेंट में यदि ट्रीज को काटा जा रहा है तो उन्हीं ट्रीज को आप शिफ्ट करने की कोशिश करेंगे कि रोड जब बनेगा तो उसके साइड में ट्रीज लगे होंगे, डिवाइडर पे ट्रीज लगे होंगे। डिस्प्लेसमेंट यदि लोगों का करना है तो कुछ NGOs को आप इनवाइट करोगे कि भाई इन लोगों की मदद की जाए। मैनी NGOs आर जस्ट इन दी वांट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन कि कहाँ पर हमारी ज़रूरत है, एंड यू आर just one of the pivot and connector. Okay, so this question is just talking about your domain knowledge, your expertise, but not in the fixation term, not in the routine term. The innovativeness is one of the things that is to be used to done away with what is called as ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas are there always in personal and professional life because many choices are available. When we talk about question number 3A, that every work has got to pass through the hundreds of difficulties before succeeding. Those that persevere will see the light sooner or later. So there are three statements. One is of Swami Vivekananda, and after this of Dalai Lama and Erik Erikson, the prominent psychologist. Okay, Dalai Lama sir and Swami Vivekananda sir, you are knowing this. So the statement is of course about Swami Vivekananda, given by Swami Vivekananda, but when you are analyzing it, when you are writing the answer, you need not to confine it to the preachings of Swami Vivekananda. You can very well have the connections. You can have the connections from the Indian scholar side. You can have the connection from Western scholar side. This is something which is liked by the examiner. Making connection is very, very important. Giving suitable example from current affairs is another very important aspect of the answer. So every work has got to pass through hundreds of difficulties before succeeding. Those that preserve will see light of. So basically, this is something that failures are nothing but the stepping stones, right? First attempt, second attempt, third attempt, rank 1. So this is what? फर्स्ट टाइम फेल हुए, दूसरे टाइम फेल हुए, लेकिन अपने आप में ये नहीं सोचा कि मैं ये नहीं कर सकता, बिल्कुल कर सकता हूँ. दूसरा एक पर्सन हु गॉट IPS but could not clear prelims this year doesn't mean that he is not capable of cracking prelims again. Maybe the training obligations, other sickness might have caused such result. Again, he might have tried, became an IAS. So basically, failures are the stepping stones, is part of the process, is part of the good success. And last में तो हम लोग एक ही बात कहते हैं, कुछ नहीं हुआ तो क्या, तजुर्बा तो नया होगा. Every day from everything we are learning, and life is a very, very kind of liquid process. We cannot solidify it for every aspect. We have to learn. Okay, so Swami Vivekananda is to be connected sometimes to Gandhi ji, right? Sometimes to Dr. Kalam also as an intellect, right? Swami Vivekananda lecture, which was noticed globally, we have to talk about that too. And last but not the least, when we talk about Swami Vivekananda, we have to talk about a secular approach today, right? So when we are trying to have reform for having the new values, so we have to say that anything in religion or in education, it is to be very practical for the next generation which is coming up. It need not to be given a different color which is connected to any political class or in any societal class or any region, religion or anything. No class. Humanity is the perfect class. So neutrality is to be reflected, no bias. Then another question which has been covered in this paper was from Dalai Lama side, that we can never obtain peace in the outer world until and unless we obtain peace within ourselves. You must be knowing about Dalai Lama, sir. He is main patron of peace in a particular region, adjacent to India. China was after him. He took Islam, right, in Dharamshala, and Chachaji, then Jawaharlal Nehru ji, the PM, and many of the stories are there because of the relational aspect, like Hindu Chini Bhai Bhai. Dalai Lama sometimes was not entertained to that level, that desired level. It is a history aspect, but he is a good patron of peace. But if we talk about peace in terms of ethics paper, in terms of psychological aspect, peace will only be coming when you are deflating yourself from materialistic desires, extra ambitious for things that you want things मतलब प्रोग्रेस इतनी ज़्यादा चाहिए लाइफ में जिसकी ज़रूरत भी नहीं है, राइट? गांधी जी का कॉन्सेप्ट है ट्रस्टीशिप, उसमें भी हमें बिलीव करना चाहिए कि जितनी हमें ज़रूरत है उतना रखें, बाकी उन लोगों को देने की कोशिश करें, पास करने की कोशिश करें जिनको ज़रूरत है, जिनको हमारी ज़रूरत है. ओके, एंड द पीस विल बी कमिंग ओनली व्हेन you are mentally stable, and this will be coming from the secured zone if you have attained. And secured zone you can connect to the Maslow's need hierarchy. Here, making connection is very, very important. So when you have brought Maslow's need hierarchy, immediately the peace aspect will be connected, and you will be talking about what is called as self actualization. Right? We are inculcating yoga as the essential phase in a day of the public official life. Every district collector, district and DM has been instructed that as far as possible they need to conduct such exercises, especially for the children. It is must. But apart from yoga, what all things we have here when in the brain we are having the stem of thing कि हमें ये करना है, हमें ये करना है, हमारे पास इमोशनल डिस्टर्बेंस हो गया. कुछ लोगों को तो ऐसा भी है कि भाई एग्जाम की तैयारी कर रहे हैं, रिलेशन में थे तो ब्रेकअप हो गया, तो पूरा का पूरा प्रोसेस डिस्टर्ब हो गया. यस, इट हैपन्स. ऑल्सो इट इज पेनफुल, बट इट इज वेरी नेचुरल एंड इट हैपन्स. वन हैज टू अंडरस्टैंड. क्योंकि रोड पे यदि गाड़ी चलेगी तो यू कैन नॉट से कि कभी हमारा एक्सीडेंट नहीं होगा. भगवान करे किसी का ना हो, लेकिन मुझे पता है कि होता है. मेरे भी हुए हैं, वो छोटा है बड़ा है, होते जरूर हैं. वी कैन अवॉइड इट. दिस इज समथिंग विच इज नेचुरल इन नेचर. वी कैन नॉट say that it will not happen. Nothing is absolute in the world. So interconnection is very, very important. When I talk about the third statement of Erik Erikson, he was that person who worked under the Anna Freud, who is daughter of Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud, you must be knowing this name, the charismatic psychologist, psychoanalyst, who had the chair and the patient was sitting, and he was able to cure that patient through the talk only. And for him, the two words were there around which the whole world is revolving: sex and aggression. Channelizing the energy in a particular way will take you to a particular point. That was his take. But anyway, coming to this aspect, that life does not make any sense without interdependence. We need each other, and the sooner we learn that, it is better for us all. So main word, main pivot is interdependence. See, we all are individual, right? But we are social animal. In house we have one pet, maybe two pet. So one pet is connected to us. This is one aspect. But when we talk about only human beings, we all are social animal, and this social world is a networked world. Because family, we need friends, right? We need peer group. This is one thing. But when we talk about interdependence, that necessarily we are dependent on them, not on our physical needs. That one will be preparing food, another will be washing the clothes or whatever and what not. But also the psychological dependence is there. We cannot live in isolation. And we are dependent necessarily for particular services. We cannot do all the work alone, right? So this is not interdependence, that within the body all the organs are dependent on each other, right? Interdependence means we are talking about two independent person. So there's maybe country 1 and country 2 in the world level, or there may be two people. So when we talk about team, and when we talk about group, This group is not connected to each other psychologically, but the team is. यहाँ पे क्या है, द टीम में एक और एक 11 होते हैं, और यहाँ पर एक और एक 2 होते हैं. ग्रुप में जरूरी नहीं है कि वो एक साथ देख रहे हैं तो वो साइकोलॉजिकली भी इंटीग्रेटेड हों, जरूरी है कि वो टीम की तरह काम करें. तो यहाँ पर जब इंटरडिपेंडेंस की हम जब बात करते हैं तो हमें साइकोलॉजिकल कोनोटेशन अपने अंदर में रखना पड़ेगा. Interdependence, if we need to talk about, then we need to talk about the societal aspects. We need to talk about the international scenario. That the import export wise, the global connect, that we are living in a global village and we are a small unit. We have to understand that we are dependent on each other, and this is something which is very, very required from both of the end, and it is mutually agreed. So if we say that one is boss, no, it is not. One is under me, it is not. Everyone is with the with proposition. Then this interdependence will be working fine. And when we talk about with proposition, we can drop a name called as Mary Parker Follett. In public administration, she is one of the scholars who was chronologically belonging to the next era, but to the previous era as the classist, but as the thought wise, or you can say her mentality was belonging to the next class, right? So if this is to be you can say connected with the other aspects of your syllabus, then you can talk about the emotional intelligence, you can talk about attitude, you can also talk about the aptitude. The attitude, if we need to have, it is not to be individualistic in nature, right? It has to be social in nature. The isolated term, say for example, the solo game, badminton, is individual to individual game. But when we talk about cricket, necessarily it is with the minimum 11 players, and one player is not individual in it. Of course, the interdependence is there. It is the sports psychology. So in the same manner, analogically, if we talk about in the department as an IAS, you are DC or DM, is it your success purely if you are successful in some of the policy or program? No, you have to give credit to the entire district administration. You are just one pivot. Never forget to give credit to all the team members. You come last, and that is why you are on the top. Coming to another question, this is the fourth one. The attitude is an important component that goes as input in the development of human being. This is one part of the question. Then how to build a suitable attitude needed for a public servant. This how word is another thing. Attitude is an important component that goes as input in the development of human being. Now, what do we mean by attitude? Attitude means long, enduring predisposition. Long enduring predisposition means we have developed one way of doing thing and we repeatedly do the same thing in that particular way. So attitude is not something that we talk about in terms of Salman Khan, who is having attitude, or any other person. So attitude is there, which is there in every person. So there may be positive attitude, there may be negative attitude, and aptitude is different here. To make it attitude word clear, so aptitude means what? Aptitude means talent, right? IQ based concept, which is, and whereas attitude is EI based concept, habit patterns, it shows value premises of a person, whereas aptitude shows the artistic nature of a person, right? The talent, the skillfulness. आप तलवार चलाना जानते हैं, आप बहुत अच्छा सोचते हैं, बहुत जल्दी सोच लेते हैं चीज़ों को, ये आपका एप्टीट्यूड है। एटीट्यूड का मतलब आप कितने ईमानदार हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है। आप बहुत बड़े साइंटिस्ट हैं लेकिन ईमानदार नहीं हैं, मिसाइल का फॉर्मूला बनाकर आप पाकिस्तान को बेच देंगे, तो ऐसा साइंटिस्ट हमको नहीं चाहिए। वी नीड टू हैव एन एवरेज साइंटिस्ट जो कुछ दिनों में बनाएगा, बहुत जल्दी नहीं बनाएगा, लेकिन वो ईमानदार है, वो उस मिसाइल का फॉर्मूला बगल वाले कंट्री को नहीं बेचेगा। दिस इज समथिंग कॉल्ड एज एटीट्यूड, एंड दैट इज व्हाई इट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अस टू हाँ, ये रख दो। हाँ, अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है, ये हाँ यहाँ पे रख दो, तो वो ट्रिम तुम ही करोगे कल आके। ठीक है, ठीक। So this is something which is very very important, that attitude is to be developed in every human being, and it is nothing but the value premises. In value we need to have honesty, we need to have trustworthiness, right? So truthfulness, these all the values which are required and which will be happening from the day one of a child. When the dada dadi ji, the grandfather storytelling is there, what a child in the lap is doing, hearing these stories, and what is the elder's responsibility or intention to inculcate one particular attitude, value, which is a psychological reward for a child who is just listening to that story which is told by the grandfather. Very, very, carefully, seriously, one child listen to those stories. I also remember the stories of my time. Now they are asking in the second question that how to build suitable attitude needed for a public servant. So there is something called as sensitivity training. And as part of sensitivity training, you guys are taken to particular villages. You need to make the report of it, but also as part of Bharat Darshan, you are taken at some of the places, say for example Kalahandi, right, Koraput, in Odisha. These are the areas wherein poverty is there. People are not having the very, you can say, very very bad life. Okay, so sensitivity training means you are sensitized about the people's problem, that these life can be so low that they are not able to have food in time. What this administration is all about is about that person who is dying because of hunger, right? एक भूख से तड़पते हुए आदमी के लिए वैल्यूज का क्या मैटर करेगा? जब आप एज ए एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर जाते हैं और ये उनको देखते हैं और आप नेग्लेक्ट कर देते हैं, जरूरी है कि उनको समझें। Many a time when we are sitting in car and when a poor person is coming asking some of the money, we give food also. But when we talk about this problem in general in nature, and if we talk about that particular person who is begging that आप काम कुछ करोगे, तो वो भाग जाएंगे क्योंकि उन्होंने अपना वो रास्ता बना लिया है। तो प्रॉब्लम छोटी मोटी नहीं है, प्रॉब्लम उनको रिहेबिलिटेट करना है, लेकिन वो होना भी नहीं चाहते हैं और उनको हमें कन्विंस करना है। सो दिस इज नथिंग बट innovativeness we have to bring in. Many policies and programs are there of the government of India, especially this present government is doing a lot for some of the programs, and wherein the skill upgradation is there in as part of the Make in India. Many of the people are given employment, because it is not that education will fetch you one of the job. It's outside the educational domain. There is something called as a skill, which is very very important. After the elementary education level you have attained, you can get one skill and you can get a job. This is very, very important so as to sustain the life. So, how to build a suitable attitude needed for a public servant is something which is which has been realized that in service training is there every fifth year or every second year. The vestibule training is also there. The types of training these are, we have to term them here in the answer while writing it, that every bureaucrat and every meeting must have the exchange of experiences. There has to be a role modeling of a particular bureaucrat who has done well. Of course, Kiran Bedi ji is now no more into any service after the governorship. She is here in Delhi. She is also called as Crane Bedi. Why? Because the then Prime Minister, the lady Prime Minister, उन्होंने अपनी गाड़ी को सही जगह पे पार्क नहीं किया था, तो उनकी गाड़ी को उन्होंने क्रेन से टांग दिया था प्राइम मिनिस्टर की कार को, और वो भी मैं किसी और लेडी की बात नहीं कर रहा, इंदिरा गांधी जी की बात कर रहा। सो किरण बेदी से उनका नाम पड़ गया था क्या, क्रेन बेदी। लेकिन ये पब्लिक ऑफिसर की ताकत है। ये तो आपको सोचना चाहिए कि भाई आप इतने बड़े पद पे हैं तो आपसे जाने अनजाने में भी गलती ना हो जाए, क्योंकि वो गलती एक मैसेज देती है दूसरे लोगों को। हम जैसे छोटे लोग गलती कर दें तो होता है, समझ में आता है, लेकिन जब आप मैच्योर्ड हो जाते हैं, एक मैच्योरिटी का लेवल एक पोजीशन के ऊपर, जब हजारों करोड़ों लोग देख रहे होते हैं, वर्ल्ड देख रहा होता है, तो आपकी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कई फोल्ड ज़्यादा होती है। दिस इज़ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। सो वी हैव टू हैव time to time training for it. Then if we talk about another question, in case of crisis of conscience, does emotional intelligence help to overcome the same without compromising the ethical or moral standard that you are likely to follow? Critically examine. I have already made a video for the tailenders, राइट। क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन तो करना ही है, वो भी क्रिटिकली मीन्स आपको समटाइम्स क्रिटिसाइज भी करना पड़ सकता है चीज़ों को समझाने के लिए, एग्जामिन करने के लिए। नाउ क्राइसिस ऑफ कॉन्साइंस क्या होता है, ये आपको सबसे पहले पता होना चाहिए। कॉन्साइंस मीन्स इट इज कनेक्टेड टू मोरल of yours. Moral is individualistic in nature, that I have already covered in class, that what you understand that this particular thing is good. Honesty is the best policy. This is your morality. When you come to bureaucracy, diplomacy is the best policy that is being taught to us. So morality and honesty and diplomacy both are different things, but personal life and professional life both are different. So in personal life, we need to talk about moral, we need to talk about conscience. Crisis of conscience is impacted, or in case of crisis of conscience, emotional intelligence help to overcome the same without compromising the ethical or moral standard. Answer is negative, answer is positive. Now example. Okay, now what will you be telling that if as an IAS my minister is asking me to sign a particular document which is theoretically not correct for me, but I see that my minister is correct for this particular law and order problem. My theory, my bureaucratic position does not allow me to sign this, but minister is in this particular case is correct, and there is a crisis of conscience. My emotional intelligence will help to overcome the same without heralding or shaking my ethical premises. Answer is yes here, because this question is connected to the innovation, the creativity, that the routine or fixation thing you will not be having for solving the same problem in the same way again and again. Here, if the law and order problem is there, say for example, the stone pelting is there, minister is saying that they are the sponsored people. In Kashmir, it happened, and they are innocent. They are not knowing about the larger picture. Instead of putting them behind the bars, which will be ruining their career also, what you can do, that just take very soft action, keep them, confine them to an isolated place, tell them it is not good or whatever the situation, or to puncture the situation or the momentum, you just need to keep them calm. And there is no case registered against them, and then they are released. You have done this. Your bureaucratic position is not all about this, but you were convinced. But when you talk about otherwise situation, that a minister is saying that put them behind the bar, and they are to be put behind the bar, and you are not convinced about this fact that they need not to be, then of course you need to have sometimes convincing factor within you that if you are not adhering to your minister, who may not be wrong sometimes, then your posting may be there untimely, you may be scolded publicly, that has happened in past. How will you be dealing with this situation? It will happen in the administration, bound to happen. But here, as part of the answer, you have to just talk about the emotional intelligence is somewhat attitudinal aspect of a personality. An emotional intelligent person is socially very smart. Nothing is good or bad in the world, but the context makes something good or bad, right? Always remember about the context. You have to say that the situational appeal of any problem, you have to deal with that problem innovatively. You have to instruct yourself in such a manner that you are not having a ethical premise which is very rigid in nature. Okay, so you have to make a graph that these are the core values and there are the peripheral values which can be adjusted if there is a particular situation, right? So stone pelting is one of the situation, and in that minister may be saying which is important for the youth who are innocent, and otherwise a minister is saying that innocent youth must be put behind the bar because of the political reason. So these two situations are there, and in that you need not to go very in a kind of tension, but all you need to convince yourself for the situational appeal. You need to just talk socially smartly to the minister that this is the thing and I need to do this, so that you are able to preserve your official life, your personal well-being, but also you are able to do good for the people actually. Now coming to another question. This is the question which was actually GS paper 2 question, but had it been in GS paper 2 international relation, you might have put many content in it, but if it is ethics paper, you have to talk about some of the umbrella concepts. The question is saying that refugees should not be turned back to the country where they would face persecution, human right violation. Examine the statement with reference to ethical dimension being violated by the nation claiming to be democratic with open society. In India also, the border adjacent to Myanmar, Bangladesh earlier, 10 lakh people from Bangladesh, when the Indo-Bangladesh war was there, Bangladesh took birth after that war only of 1971, when Indira Gandhi ji was heading it. 16 days war it was. But the refugee, who are they? They have a threat to their life that they can be persecuted. And that is why they are coming to your place. It is your responsibility, moral responsibility as part of government. You have to take shelter. You have to give shelter. And if you need to mention a overall concept here, there is something called as principle of refoulement. It talks about it talks about that the government has to look into this problem, that a person or a group of person in exodus, means in lakhs, 2 lakhs, if they are coming, food, shelter and clothes, they must be given. At the time when the war was there, the East Pakistan, West Pakistan and India was there in between, we were dealing with the economic crisis, but the then lady prime minister did not perplex, and she was able to manage the situation that people coming to India must get at least the basic essential food so as to sustain their life, if not full. There is a country called as Lebanon. The total population is around 70 lakh, and around more than 15 lakh people are refugee there. Once they can, like 20% around population is refugee, right? Why so much of population? This is another story. I'm not going into it as part of international relation. But when such thing may be there, why not? We cannot cater 1 lakh or 2 lakh people. But the ethical dilemma here, if I talk about the previous question too here, taking the example of refugee, the government think that through Myanmar route, our neighboring country are able to make route in India. What cannot come through Baga border can come through that route. There may be suicide bombers. There may be serial bomb blast. There may be other problem, sponsored problems, right? There are red corridors areas, Naxal problem. So they are given assistance by the neighboring country, so that we are into a state of civil war or like that. Particularly, I don't say that our neighboring country should be finished overnight. No, they should live their life. We should live their life. And if there is a litmus test, and you can say there is a cutoff point passed, then we can take the action. But as part of doctrine given by Dr. Kalam, that no first attack, we are always in defense. So that is what is our theory. You do your work, we will be doing our work, but please don't poke nose into my domain, right? So basically, this is a humanitarian crisis, and if even two countries are into war and this country is having earthquake overnight, this country will be providing assistance. Our neighboring country got the earthquake. We forgot about all the differences. Immediately, we rushed with the help. This is the thing which is very, very important. You can very well write in the answer, right? So this, you can say example and concept you can put in this question. Another question, if we talk about, should impartial and being non-partisan, these are the two values, non-partisan, be considered as indispensable qualities to make a successful civil servant? If you might have given 5-minute reading to your question paper when the question paper was given to you, you will find that first question was about the 5 traits. Another question was about the 10 essential values. The answers are there in the question itself. If you're not able to think beyond honesty, trustworthy, empathy, compassion, perseverance, and conviction, conviction and what is and what not. I'm also sometimes not able to list all the things here, but impartiality is there, non-partisan is there, neutrality is there, anonymity is there. So when you have solved all last year questions asked by UPSC, I am saying that that is the syllabus for you. UPSC will not be going beyond many a times, and will be convinced that you have used the content asked by UPSC. You can very well write in the answer also as asked by UPSC earlier, and you can say this. Examiner who is checking the copy will be seeing that you are backing your statement by the UPSC itself. If the examiner is not personally convinced, he has to drop the number, because UPSC has already told that yes, this thing happens that way. Anyway, should impartiality and non-partition be considered as the indispensable qualities to make a successful civil servant? Answer is yes. Bias, any, because of regionalism, because of religionalism, because of your relative nepotism? Yes or no? Answer is negative. You have to be impartial for anything or everything. The neutrality factor is hinted here. This government may be of X value, another government is coming with Y value, but you are consistently there in the system with neutrality. You have to obey the orders given by present government. You have to obey the order given by the next government. Maybe the orders are different, but you have to obey the government of the day. Earlier, maybe the communist value was there of a particular political party. This time you have the capitalism here in picture. Another time you may be having mixed picture. You may be having autocratic picture sometimes. As a bureaucrat, as a career official, what is your duty? So minister civil servant relation is another thing, and decisional making, because you are anonymous. Anonymity is just different from popularity. एनोनिमिटी क्या होता है? पर्दे के पीछे रह के काम करना है. पॉपुलैरिटी क्या है? कि मिनिस्टर को आगे, पर्दे के आगे रह के काम करना है, पॉपुलिस्ट मेजर्स लेने हैं. लोगों को पता होता है, अकाउंटेबिलिटी उनकी ज़्यादा बनती है, क्योंकि उन्हें इलेक्शन में जाना है, उनको क्रेडिट लेना है जो भी उन्होंने काम किया. काम आप ही ने किया है, लेकिन क्रेडिट उनको लेना है. आपकी नौकरी कहीं नहीं जाएगी, बिकॉज आप करियर ऑफिशियल्स हैं. Whereas they are people's representative है. दोनों में अंतर है, right? Politician, minister and bureaucrats, दोनों में बहुत अंतर है. And we talk about non-partition. Of course, you need not to be of the thought that जैसा देश वैसा भेष. No, some of the core values are there. You need not to part away with, you need not to done away with. You have to be on the core value of a civil servant, which is indispensable in nature: trustworthiness, empathy, compassion, perseverance. Must. You have to write openly about it. Okay. Now coming to another question here. An independent and empowered social audit mechanism is an absolute must in every sphere of public service, including judiciary, to ensure performance, accountability, and ethical conduct. Elaborate. Now, an independent and empowered social audit mechanism. First, we need to know about social audit. You know that at the level of Gram Panchayat, Gram Sabha, that is village assembly. Village assembly is a body of all the electorates, right? At the village level, who are resident of that village, are doing social audit. Social audit means asking the question from the village headsman that क्या हुआ, कैसे हुआ, यहाँ पे गांव में यहाँ नाला बनना था या यहाँ नहर बननी थी, कैसे नहीं बनी, हमें रिकॉर्ड दिखाओ, उसकी फोटो कॉपी भी दो। ये सब सोशल ऑडिट होता है। जनता दरबार सब सोशल ऑडिट का मैकेनिज्म है। नाउ ये इस सोशल ऑडिट मैकेनिज्म को जो ग्रास रूट डेमोक्रेसी में प्रैक्टिस होती है, दे वांट दैट एवरी स्फीयर में इंक्लूडिंग जुडिशरी में ये चीज होनी चाहिए, विच इज समटाइम्स नॉट पॉसिबल। जुडिशरी में इफ यू आर हैविंग सोशल ऑडिट मैकेनिज्म, देन जो जजेस होते हैं वो क्या करेंगे, अपनी ही डिसीजन को दिया हुआ यदि कोई गलत भी डिसीजन है और उसको मीडिया ने क्रिटिसाइज किया तो कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्ट बोल देते हैं। So we cannot say that social audit mechanism in the same spirit we can introduce. Of course, the judicial ombudsman can be there. The retired Chief Justice of India can be there as the patron, as one of the umbrella figure for entire judiciary, right? So ombudsman can be there, but social audit mechanism for the public officials, yes, it is possible. The senior civil servant, cabinet secretary, secretary rank who was retired can be roped in again to just guide the youngsters, IAS, the other civil servants, so that they need to have not only the fear but also the guiding factor that seniors are available. Of course, they are already there, but this is talking about the social audit mechanism, means the stakeholder. We are doing things for the public, and of course, if public is there, they have to be roped in. We have to make them to ask the question so that we can improve upon the things. Even we talk about some of the particular bodies, the Kisan Morcha Sangh, they have used such mechanism that it made the government to allow to even the photocopy of the public records. So it has to expand, right? In Rajasthan, this panchayat success is there, which is not there in UP and Bihar. It has to spread the message. Maybe it is good in southern states, but not in every state. Every state, this grassroots democracy is very relevant. But if they are talking about the state level politics, the national level politics, the Lokpal, we have to make very effective Lokpal first. If we talk about Lokayukta, first of all, Lokayukta is not there in every state. If one is there, the appointment of a neutral Lokayukta at the state level is just not that feasible. We are finding that every government wants to keep the puppet officials, right? I'm just hinting at the top, the first citizen of India also, right? In the politics, we talk about the puppet, the rubber stamp expression for a particular position, the president of India. So why it is so? It has to be analyzed, and of course we can talk about it, but there are examples. You need to rope in the policies and programs from the current affairs side. If we talk about another question of the same sixth one, integrity is a value that empowers the human being. Justify with suitable illustration. Integrity का मतलब क्या होता है? पहले तो ये समझना चाहिए हमको. Integral, right? Not means undividedness is there in us. We all are honest, but till the opportunity reaches us. इसका मतलब ये है that if someone wants to purchase us, so 1 crore is not sufficient to purchase it, but if the value is high, 2 crore, 3 crore, so 5 crore is that cut-off point, we can be sold off. As part of public official, we will be doing corruption. So integrity is something that is telling that in the adverse situation also, you will not be collapsing. You are honest. You are a soldier. You have been caught by Pakistani army, and they are saying, in a lighter vein, I am saying this, that वो कह रहे हैं कि आपको बोलो कि पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद, इंडिया मुर्दाबाद, तो आप तो नहीं बोलोगे, बट आप स्मार्टली उसको हैंडल करने की कोशिश करोगे. कि भाई वी ऑल आर फाइटिंग फॉर आवर नेशन, बट इट डजंट मेक एनी सेंस. इट इज जस्ट अनमाइंडफुल थिंग दैट दे वांट अस टू डू इट. They do it in the doctored video we have seen. But integrity is something which is seen in the adverse situation, when you can be posted at a place which is not desirable place for you, and you are sticking to your value. Okay, please do, I'm not afraid of. Then your image will be created in the people's eye, in the minister's eye, that this public office, this officer is of different value. Maybe a position will be given which will be cornered, or you can say which will be a deflated position, then fine. But your image is like that, you will either be appointed as CAG because you are very honest. Your senior will be apprising you of as an honest officer, integral officer. Integrity is a separate column in ACR column also that I've shown you in the beginning of the video. So this is very, very important. Integrity is not simply honesty. It is active honesty, active trustworthiness. आप आगे इंटीग्रेटेड, आप लोगों के सामने आपकी इमेज भी है और आप अंदर से भी है. बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. नॉट सिंपल ऑनेस्टी और ट्रस्टवर्दीनेस. एंड यहाँ पर आपको इलस्ट्रेशंस भी देने हैं. empowers the human being. So if Dr. Kalam's example as an integral person is given, who is no more now, is the best example here. Gandhiji's example if given is best example here. Many of the lucrative offers were made not only to Dr. Kalam as scientist, but also to Gandhiji, right? But they did not collapse. They were sticking to their values and the value frame that they had. And next example can be of yours after you become an IAS and a civil servant. Now, after that, we are having the case studies. The case studies, when you look at it, you will find it as a story, very simple one. You will also be feeling that, yes, what is the answer? But articulation is very, very difficult. Now, say for example, this is one of the case study here. यहाँ पर आपको वाइस प्रिंसिपल की तरह बिहेव करना है. हुआ ये है इस वाले केस स्टडी के अंदर में, दैट जो प्रिंसिपल है वो छुट्टी पर है, एंड उस स्कूल के अंदर में 2 बच्चे हैं, जिसमें से एक बच्चा उस बिजनेसमैन का है जो बहुत सारी डोनेशन उस कॉलेज में या स्कूल में देता है. दूसरा बच्चा पॉलिटिकल क्लास का है जिसके पास बहुत सारी पावर्स हैं. और वो दोनों बच्चे नकल करते हुए पकड़े गए हैं, और उसमें आपके कॉलेज का एक फैकल्टी या कहे प्रोफेसर इन्वॉल्व है, और जो फ्लाइंग स्क्वाड आती है उन्होंने पकड़ लिया है. लेकिन जब आपके पास आगे जाके प्रेशर आता है, तो प्रेशर ये है कि आप इसे फिक्स करें, और आपको ये भी हिंट है कि आपने यदि इसे सब कुछ अच्छे तरीके से कर दिया तो अगला प्रमोशन जो प्रिंसिपल के रूप में आपका होगा ड्यू हो जाएगा इसके बाद. नाउ व्हाट विल यू बी डूइंग हियर? द क्वेश्चंस दैट द एथिकल इश्यूज इन्वॉल्व्ड इन दिस केस, and critically examine the option available with you as vice principal. What option will you adopt and why? So यहाँ पर ethical dilemma तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं है कि मैं प्रिंसिपल बनने के लिए जो गलत काम है उसको छुपाऊंगा, right? Now prima facie means apparently this is wrong. फ्लाइंग स्क्वाड ने जो पकड़ा है वो गलत है, लेकिन एक इंक्वायरी बनती है जिसमें 2 या 3 लोग शामिल हो सकते हैं, बिकॉज आप वाइस प्रिंसिपल हैं और ऑफिशिएटिंग प्रिंसिपल भी हैं, तो ऑफ कोर्स एक इंक्वायरी बनती है. फ्लाइंग स्क्वाड ने पकड़ा जरूर है, लेकिन दूसरे कॉलेज का कोई पर्सन साथ में आ सकता है. वो जो भी रिपोर्ट देगा उसके बेस पर एक्शन हो सकता है. जहां तक बच्चों की बात है, और स्टूडेंट यूनियन का भी यहाँ पे एक एग्जांपल दिया हुआ है कि दूसरे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो ये कह रहे हैं कि हम ईमानदारी से यहाँ पे पढ़ के एग्ज़ाम दे रहे हैं, और ये बच्चे जो हैं जो बहुत बड़े बड़े फैमिलीज़ के हैं इनको नकल करके पास कर दिया जाता है. तो आप किसी भी कॉलेज में चाहे वो डोनेशन दे दो चाहे कुछ भी हो, जब ये पब्लिक में बात आ गई है तो बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी हो जाता है उस कॉलेज या स्कूल की इमेज के लिए कि यदि कुछ गलत हुआ है तो उसको ज़रूर अंजाम तक पहुंचाए, ज़रूर पनिशमेंट है। कोई भी डोनेशन बेकार हो जाएगी। ये यहाँ पे आपको कन्विक्शन तो आपको लिखना तो ज़रूरी है, बट एज ए वाइस प्रिंसिपल व्हाट इज़ योर ड्यूटी? एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन आपके हाथ में है, आप इंक्वायरी को बैठा लेंगे और आप यहाँ पर बेसिकली नॉन पार्टीसन एंड इम्पार्शियलिटी, जो पिछले वाले क्वेश्चन में पूछा गया था, इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी हो जाती है। देन critically examine the options available with you as vice principal. What option you will adopt and why? You will be very much balanced in it. Middle path, बुद्धा जी की तरह सोचेंगे, एक्सट्रीम वे में नहीं जाएंगे कि बिल्कुल आप ब्लाइंडली एकदम ऑनेस्ट हैं। आप कॉलेज के या स्कूल के वाइस प्रिंसिपल हैं तो वो कॉलेज की वजह से हैं, उसके एग्जिस्टेंस के बारे में सोचना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है। बच्चों के करियर के बारे में सोचना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है, उसकी इमेज के बारे में सोचना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है। तो हेयर व्हेन यू हैव पुट द इंक्वायरी इन बिटवीन, you have assured the student union that every culprit will be punished, and if they have done something wrong then they will be put into another extra exam process that will be under the strict surveillance, and whatever performance they have given they will be evaluated that way, or otherwise they will be failed, they will be wasting their year and they will be rewriting their exam as part of the next year student. When it comes to the faculty who was assisting it, you need to suspend that person immediately till the inquiry report is out, right? These two things are there. The factor that the promotional aspect as a principal is there is negated totally. You have to write and you have to put the middle path of Buddha here. You have to write the educational importance of the student that you have to write, because they are into the learning phase. It's not that कि वो नकल कर रहे हैं और उनको जेल भेज दें, ऐसा तो नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है? कोई असिस्ट कर रहा था, जो रेस्पॉन्सिबल है, सस्पेंड हुआ है, यदि उसने गलत किया है तो उसको जरूर भेज सकते हैं, राइट? दिस इज समथिंग विच इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. नाउ अनदर केस स्टडी इफ वी टॉक अबाउट, नाउ इसमें एज ए सिविल इंजीनियर, प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर, आपको सभी को पता है कि रेत ज़्यादा होता है, सीमेंट कम होता है, क्रैक्स आ ही जाते हैं. तो क्रैक्स आ गए हैं और आपके जो सीनियर इंजीनियर है वो कहते हैं नेगलेक्ट कर दो क्योंकि मिनिस्टर साहब की विजिट होनी है और इसको हमें ऑपरेशनल करना है. तो ऐसे केस में आप अपने सीनियर की बात को मानेंगे या फिर आप बिल्कुल ही ओपनली चले जाएंगे कि नहीं, मैं इस चीज़ को बिल्कुल नहीं मान सकता क्योंकि कल के लिए ये ब्रिज यदि कोलैप्स हो गया तो फिर फिक्सेशन तो हमारा ही होना है, बट अदरवाइज जान माल की हानि है, ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा गलत बात हो जाएगी, डिसऑनेस्टी है. एंड व्हेन समथिंग हैज़ बीन नोटिस्ड टेक्निकली वी हैव टू ब्रॉट इट टू द लाइमलाइट, राइट? सो एक तो ये है कि आप उससे लिखित में ले लें और आप अपना काम करें क्योंकि आप ऑफिशियली करेक्ट हैं, सीनियर जिम्मेदार होगा उस चीज़ के लिए. दूसरा ये है कि आप ओपनली प्रोटेस्ट करें उनको. तीसरा ये है कि आप दूसरे चैनल से, सीनियर के भी सीनियर होते हैं जिनके पास आप जाके ये चीज़ बोल सकते हैं और मिनिस्टर तक ये बात पहुंचे और उस चीज़ को डिले किया जाए. इनॉग्रेशन जरूर हो जाए लेकिन उसके ओपन यूज़ के लिए उसे तभी छोड़ा जाए जब प्रॉब्लम पूरी खत्म हो जाए. नाउ यहाँ पे वैल्यूज़ की यदि हम बात करें, अकाउंटेबिलिटी पिक्चर में आती है, राइट? आपकी ट्रांसपेरेंसी जो वैल्यू है, ट्रांसपेरेंट होने की, ये बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, ये पिक्चर में आती है एज ए पब्लिक ऑफिशियल. देन आप एक ओवरऑल कॉन्टेक्स्ट के बारे में सोच पा रहे हैं कि बाद में क्या होगा, राइट? आप एक विजुअलाइजेशन कर पा रहे हैं, एनालाइज कर पा रहे हैं, ये भी अपने आप में एक वैल्यू निकल के आती है. नाउ the questions given in it because the case study was quite big. What are the ethical dilemmas being faced in the project manager mind? It's being asked from you. What are the professional challenges likely to be faced in the project manager and his response to overcome such challenges? What can be the consequence of overlooking the observation raised by the inspecting team? Simple. You will not be saying to your senior that I am totally convinced. You will have to brought it to the limelight of the senior, right? Ultimately, this information should be with the minister who is coming. In the case study, they just want to see your basically not ideal fullness, but the practical fullness. This is something which is very, very important. It doesn't mean that आपका जो सीनियर है उससे आपको ऑफेंड करना है, उसे एक बार समझाने की कोशिश जरूर करनी है। सर, मैं आपका छोटा जरूर हूँ, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि एक बार ये बात करने की ज़रूरत है। और जब ये ना हो तो धीरे से आप उस चीज़ को आगे ले जाने की कोशिश करें। नो हार्म इन दैट। ज़्यादा क्या होगा, थोड़ी परेशानी होगी, लेकिन जब बहुत बड़ा अच्छा होना होता है ना, तो प्री रिक्विजिट उसकी बात ज़रूरी है कि परेशानी ज़रूर होती है। आज की डेट में जब आप लर्न कर रहे हैं ना, पढ़ रहे हैं दिन रात, तो बेसिकली परेशानी तो है ही। विदाउट एनी गारंटी कि मेन में पास होंगे कि नहीं, भगवान करे कि सभी पास हों, बट आई एम जस्ट सेइंग कि कुछ लोग तो जाएंगे जो अगले साल शायद आईएएस बनेंगे, कुछ लोग इंटरव्यू के बाद बाहर होंगे, कुछ लोग तो मेडिकल में भी जाएंगे। हालांकि मैं सबके लिए बहुत अंदर से ये पॉजिटिव हूँ कि सभी लोग ठीक ठाक से पास हों, जितने भी इस वीडियो को देख रहे हैं वो तो ज़रूर हों, बट ऐसा होता नहीं है जनरली। सो आइडियलिस्ट बनने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, प्रैक्टिकल बनने की बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है किसी भी केस स्टडी में आंसर लिखते वक्त। अनदर केस स्टडी है कि कोरोना वायरस आपके यहाँ पे आया हुआ है और आप डिस्ट्रिक्ट के अंदर में कई सारे केसेस आ चुके हैं, और इसमें बेसिकली ये है कि जो क्वेश्चन दिया हुआ है कि एक प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल है आपका, तब आपका जस्टिफिकेशन क्या बैठेगा, और एक गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल की तरह जो जस्टिफिकेशन है वो आपका जस्टिफिकेशन होगा, वो क्या बैठेगा। बट इन दोनों केसेस में जब आप हिपोक्रेटिक ओथ लेते हो, जब आप डॉक्टर बनते हो, तो आप सोल्जर से कम नहीं हो। यदि वॉर आया तो हम घर में बैठ जाएंगे, भाई पूरी जिंदगी भर या एज अ डॉक्टर आप किस लिए हो? आप इसलिए हो कि कोई भी प्रॉब्लम आई है तो आप आगे हो। एज अ डॉक्टर यदि आप अपने ऑन ड्यूटी खत्म होते हो तो आपका जो लास्ट डे है ना, वो एक सोल्जर से कम नहीं है। यू आर हेल्थ वॉरियर। हिपोक्रेट होत आपने ली हुई है, लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, मैं यही बोलूँगा। एंड एज पार्ट ऑफ ह्यूमन वैल्यू one has to come forward. We all are doctors. As part of the first aid, if we are coming across any accident and all, we need to behave as a limited doctor. कुछ नहीं पता है, लेकिन ये तो पता है कि ब्लड आ रहा है, उसको बांधना है। आई एम नॉट अ डॉक्टर, बट आई विल बी डूइंग एज पार्ट ऑफ द फर्स्ट एड। बट इफ यू आर अ प्रॉपर डॉक्टर, कोरोना हैवोक इज देयर अराउंड, इट इज नॉट you that you are sitting at home, but it is the expertise that you are carrying in you is very, very important at this point. But yes, as a private sector administrator, your response is different for the resources from where you will be arranging it, for the fund, for the compensation. But as far as the treatment for the patient is concerned, yes, the response is same from the public hospital side or from the private hospital side. Now, when we talk about another case study, the last one. Now, this is something which is talking about a reputed food product company based in India developed a food product for the international market and started exporting the same after getting necessary approval. The company announced this achievement and also indicated that soon the product will be made available for the domestic consumer with almost same quality and health benefit. Accordingly, the company got its product approved by domestic competent authority and launched the product in Indian market. The company could increase its market share over a period of time and earned substantial profit both domestically and internationally. However, the random sample tests conducted by the inspecting team found the product being sold domestically in variance with the approval obtained from the competent authority. On further investigation, it was also discovered that the food company was not only selling products which were not meeting the health standard uh, of the country, but also selling the rejected export product in the domestic market. This episode adversely affected the reputation and profitability of the food company. The company could increase its market share over a period of time and earn substantial profit both domestically and internationally. Actually, this case study I was not able to recall. That is why I had to reread it again. However, the random sample test conducted by the inspecting team found the product being sold domestically in variance with the approval obtained from competent authority. On further investigation, it was also discovered that the food company was not only selling products which were not meeting the health standard of the country, but also selling the rejected export in the domestic market. This episode adversely affected the reputation and profitability of the food company. This has been repasted again. So what action you would visualize should be taken by the competent authority against the food company for violating the laid down domestic food standard and selling rejected export product in the domestic market. Prima facie, if it is correct, should we cancel the license or should we improve upon the kind of filtration mechanism, right? FSSAI we can talk about here, but not fully because this is ethics paper. What course of action available with the food company to resolve the crisis being backed its lost reputation? Examine the ethical dilemma involved in this case. Basically, as the job holder, on the one hand the company, on the one hand the ethics. कंपनी को बचाएं जिससे हम सैलरी लेते हैं, उसमें एथिक्स जो है वो नीचे बैक सीट ले लेती है, या फिर हम लोग जो ईमानदारी है उसका झंडा लेके सबसे ऊपर चले, या फिर कोई ऐसा मिडिल पाथ हो सकता है जिसमें ये कंपनी तो अपनी जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, जो कमियां हैं, उसको दूर करके और भी अच्छी कंपनी बन के निकले. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि यदि ये प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, फिक्सेशन हुआ है, जिन भी कंज्यूमर्स ने लिया है, कंपनी को इमीडिएटली एपोलॉजी रेंडर करनी चाहिए और एक कंपेंसेशन भी डिक्लेयर करना चाहिए. पब्लिकली ये माफ़ी मांगनी चाहिए कि शायद ऐसा यदि हुआ है तो क्यों हुआ है, और उसके लिए पूरी की पूरी एक रिपोर्ट बैठा ली जाए. आगे के केस में इनवाइट किया जाए ऑडिट को, इन्वेस्टिगेशन को या पीयर ग्रुप को कि हमें एक्रेडिटेशन देने के लिए कि हम लोग अच्छे से अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, जैसे ISO सर्टिफिकेशन होता है, तो ये सब चीज़ें आगे से आगे रखी जाए. इंटरनेशनल सिनेरियो में यूएस ने इंडिया को एक्यूज किया था कि हम लोग जो मैंगो हैं उनके पल्प में कीड़े होते हैं, राइट, उसको ठीक से नहीं रख पाते. जैसे अल्फेंसियो मैंगो होता है, उसको एक प्रॉपर केमिकल नेट के अंदर में रखा जाता है जिसमें उसका फर्मेंटेशन थोड़ा डिले हो जाता है. तो देयर आर मैनी थिंग्स, बट विद इन इंडिया इट हैपन्स. आप जो चाय पीते हैं तो डोमेस्टिकली जो आपको अवेलेबल है उसकी क्वालिटी उतनी नहीं होती है जो एक्सपोर्ट हो रही होती है, तो उसके रेट भी बहुत ज़्यादा होते हैं और उसके लिए सभी कैटेगरीज भी बनी हुई हैं और उसके अप्रूवल भी लिखे हुए हैं और सब कुछ बहुत छोटी छोटी लैंग्वेज में लिखा होता है जिसको आप माइक्रोस्कोप से भी शायद नहीं पढ़ सकते हैं. बट कोई भी प्राइवेट सेक्टर कंपनी होती है, उनका प्रॉफिट मोटिव होता है. प्रॉफिट मोटिव का ये मतलब नहीं है कि हेल्थ को आप हज़ार्ड पर रख दोगे. एंड इफ वन वेरिएंट इज अवेलेबल डोमेस्टिकली एंड person is ready to pay what price the other country is paying, we have to get the same quality, and it is nowadays available. But of course, whatever has happened here is to be improved upon rather than cancelling the license of this company, what I will say. And of course, in between, as a buffer, I will suggest that one investigation inquiry should be there by the neutral agency and the report should be there with the improvement, not the penalizing thing which is not giving benefit to anyone, but to the people who have purchased the product should be given that benefit. यदि कार भी किसी फॉल्टी प्रोडक्ट के साथ में आती है, चाहे वो बैटरी हो या पिस्टन हो, तो सारी की सारी यूनिट को वो कार कंपनी वापस लेती है। कई बार ऐसा हुआ है, राइट। टाटा नैनो में भी प्रॉब्लम हुई थी, तो कई सारी यूनिट्स वापस हुई थी। सो दिस इज अ थिंग, बट इट डजंट मीन दैट पूरी की पूरी कंपनी का जो लाइसेंस है वो कैंसिल कर दिया जाए। बट जहाँ तक फूड की बात है, हेल्थ की बात है, जहाँ पर हेल्थ हजार्ड हो जाता है, प्रॉब्लम और भी ज़्यादा बड़ी सीरियस हो जाती है, राइट। दिस इज अ सेंसिटिव इशू एंड यू हैव टू use basically the scholars here, you have to use the current examples that बहुत सारे एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट में जहाँ पे मिड डे मील स्कीम होती है, वहाँ पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड फूड पहुँच जाता है। आज की डेट में जो पायरेसी है वो बहुत ज़्यादा अवेलेबल है। तो मीन्स दिस इज अ पेपर वेयर इन कंटेंट शुड नॉट बी ब्रॉड फ्रॉम दी अदर पेपर्स परस्पेक्टिव, लाइक वो पॉलिटी का पेपर बन जाए या इकोनॉमी का पेपर बन जाए, बट एक फिल्ट्रेशन मैकेनिज्म हो जहाँ पर सिंपल थॉट में, सिंपल थीम में आप करेक्ट जो करंट की इलस्ट्रेशंस हैं उनको आप पुट कर पाए। वैसे तो टेस्ट सीरीज के अंदर में व्हेन आई चेक दी कॉपीज, जब मैं ये चीज़ बताने की कोशिश कर रहा होता हूँ, बट रेस्ट ऑफ दी जो क्लासेस होती हैं एथिक्स की, वहाँ पर एक फ्रेम बनाना एक 60-70 घंटे का काम होता है। आई विश दैट आप कभी क्लास में हो तो ये चीज़ बना पाए। अभी के लिए आई वुड लाइक टू जस्ट say my last word about this paper, that this year paper of ethics will be relatively harder, and what I can say that what they can ask this year, there will be another video, but as a suggestion I am saying that you need to work upon empathy, that they can ask. They can ask about the novelty factor. Novelty is nothing but innovativeness, but novel word is a newer word relatively. These two values they are able to ask, because novelty is connected to emotional intelligence and empathy is connected to human values in totality, and compassion they have already asked, right? So this is all something is very very important here, and please wait for another video that I will be making exclusively for this year paper, and till then you please keep on writing something which is very very important for essay, for ethics. If any help we can extend, definitely you can call the institute number, they will be connecting you to me, right? And stay blessed, stay happy. Till next video, Jai Hind.